Hi everyone, this is not a book review because I'm still working my way through this tome. It's taken me a while. This is more a discussion video about the American Gods book and the American Gods TV series. So first up, obviously American Gods written by Neil Gaiman. This is like the book that a lot of people, particularly Gaiman fans, go on and on and on about. And I hadn't read this before. But I saw the trailer for American Gods coming to Amazon Prime because I live in the UK. And I said to my husband, I want to sit and watch that. That looks like my cup of tea. And so we sat down and watched the first episode. And I'm not quite sure what went through our brains, but it was certainly, well, that was very stylish. That was very weird. And I'm not quite sure what's going on. Which seemed to be the general consensus for a lot of people. But we soon got the hang of it, worked out the plot quite early on, and we just enjoyed the ride. The TV show is very much a leisurely pace introduction to this whole world of American Gods, to the main characters, Mr. Wednesday and Shadow Moon, and it takes its time in building up to the main thrust of the story. And I like that in a TV show. I like shows that take the time to get you to care about characters and that get you to appreciate what they are like and what they are going through. So for me, the pace is not a problem. Certainly the first 5 minutes of episode 1 are pretty bloodthirsty, to be honest. But then, you know, that's what a lot of stuff that goes straight into the streaming services over here tends to be now. And so it wasn't too much. I was able to watch it. Normally I'm a bit sort of funny about gore and slicing and stuff like that. But this wasn't a problem. It was really stylized and it was almost like art we were watching rather than gore, which was quite nice. And there are some amazingly graphic sex scenes in the series. I'm not going to deny that at all. There's sex of various degrees of strangeness, shall I say. I mean, in a show that is about gods, yeah, it does get weird at times. But I never felt that it was gratuitous or that it was there for the sake of it. While you were watching these sex scenes, you learnt about the characters, you learnt about their feelings and the emotions that are going on in these scenes. And so I never felt uncomfortable watching it. It didn't bother me. And I thought actually they did add an awful lot, particularly to some of the characters that we don't know very well, like Bilquis. We learn a lot through her few scenes that she has, particularly early on. We learn a lot about her, what she's feeling and dealing with as a forgotten god. I then started reading the book after I finished watching the TV series. So for me, I have got to... Now this is the hard bit. The TV series is telling the same story. It's just not telling it in the same way. There are things that happen in the book quite early on that haven't happened in the TV series, and there are things that have happened in the TV series that I discovered happened quite a bit later on than I thought they were going to. I think what the team behind the show considered was taking out the key elements and bringing them more into a cohesive chronological timeline rather than quite a bit of jumping about that the book does. Certainly all the Somewhere in America snippets that are in pretty much every episode, they are in here to some degree. And it's quite interesting reading them, having seen them. And whereas it could be a whole chapter in the book, it might only be 5 minutes in the show. And sometimes those coming to America are very, very different to the tale that's told in the book. Particularly the arrival of the Norse warriors on the beach. That's totally different in the book. And yet I would almost say the visual story worked a lot better It got the point across much, much clearer. And it was visually spectacular. If you're going to start a show with Norse mythology and all that, and Norse warriors, then yeah, it was the way to go, rather than the tale that was in the book, which would have been a lot more long-winded, a lot harder to explain, I think. And it wouldn't have been quite as impactful as the scene on the beach, right at the start of episode 1. What I have liked about the TV series is it has expanded the female characters. This is very male driven. We follow Shadow and Wednesday pretty much every step of the way. There are a few female characters in here, but they're sort of, we meet them and that's it. Laura Moon, Shadow's wife, is barely in the book, as is Mad Sweeney. And yet the TV show has managed to completely expand their stories and give us characters that we really care about. I mean, when one episode is completely dedicated to 2 supporting characters who are barely in the main book, and you sat and watched that episode, and I don't know about you guys that maybe have seen it or if you haven't, but for me, sitting there watching it, it was a very bittersweet episode, and it was certainly one of my favourite episodes of the series. And there was nothing spectacular that happened. It was just the story of 2 people, and it was so well told. And it's based on a chapter in this, but it was beautifully done and beautifully tied together with Laura and Mad Sweeney's story, which is almost completely ignored in the book. I don't know if they're going to come up in the second half a bit more, but certainly Laura just seems to flit in and out of the book, whereas in the show we get to see her between these flitting in and out, and I like that. Bilquis in the book has had one scene, and that's it. And it is a sex scene, which is pretty much what you see on the screen. It's in the book, so no point getting up in arms about that. And yet in the TV show, we've had at least 3 scenes with her, and it's been given an opportunity to explore her emotional depths and explore her loss and pain at being one of these forgotten gods. And it was so beautifully done and so simplistic, but it's like, yes, I feel for this character, I care for her, and you know, she's strong enough and determined enough to do whatever it takes to survive. And that's quite admiring. Whereas in the book, I've had none of that. I don't know anything about Bilquis really in here, which is a shame. Easter, who we finally meet in, I think it's episode 8 on the show. Her introduction in the book is totally different. And to be honest, I think the one in the show is really good. It is so fun. And it just ties together so many threads that were going on in season 1. That her scene in the book doesn't do, because things are still happening, so they can't do some tying up. But what they did in the show was bring in some more introduction of the world and give Mr. Wednesday his big scene, which happens quite a bit earlier on in the book. What I will say is, if you like the book, then you might have a few issues with the TV show, because like I say, it tells the story differently. It's the same story, but it's told differently. And it's very visual. Whereas there's lots of prose and description in this book, you see a lot of that on the screen. I mean, the scene with the snowflakes, when Shadow is told by Mr. Wednesday to think snow. Now we get a beautiful description in here about thinking snow, but you see that on the screen. And it is pretty awesome, to be honest, this whole concept of thinking snow and it starts snowing. And the way it is shown, that how Shadow is thinking about it and how it's seeping into his subconscious, it's really, really nicely done. And I have to give credit, because the look of this show certainly invokes what I've been reading in the book. The show looks amazing. It looks otherworldly, and the book certainly reads very otherworldly. The book it's not a straightforward read. It's not even a succinct A to B plot with C, D and E in the way. the book, it feels like you are on this journey with these characters, but you never quite know your aim, your goal at the end. You're just on the journey. And the show is very much like this. You sit there, you start watching it, and you're on the journey. You're down for the ride, and just let it sweep you away. And I think certainly the show has captured that book's feeling of just go with it and enjoy and just go along, because that's certainly what the show does. It's very much about just enjoy this. It's okay. For those people complaining about I didn't understand what was going on, to be honest, you don't understand for most of the start of the book what on earth is going on. Because Mr. Wednesday doesn't give you answers. He doesn't tell you what's happening. Shadow's been told, I don't pay you to ask questions. So it's very much up to the reader to try and piece things together from what Shadow experiences and the little bits extras that we're told. And the same for the show. It's up to the viewer to sit there and work out what is happening in front of you, putting the pieces together bit by bit. And it's intelligent telly, and I like intelligent telly. I like telly that doesn't spoon feed you the answers, that shows you some stuff, that will tell you the story visually as well as through words, and let you draw your own conclusions and let you figure out what the show's trying to tell you. And I think that's a great thing to do. I think too many shows are, here's all the information. I'm giving you all the information. This is what you're supposed to think. I like shows that let me think whatever I want to think based on what I am seeing and hearing on the screen. And certainly American Gods lets you do that. The key differences between the series and the book, obviously apart from the female characters being developed more, is a lot of the scenes in the book don't happen on the screen. Whether they're going to happen later on or not, I don't know. I mean, somebody pointed out the carousel scene in the book. That hasn't happened on the screen. I would be interested to see if they do it on the screen, because it's certainly a very visual part of the book. It's one I could see happening on screen beautifully. There are other parts of the book that are lifted almost word for word and put onto the screen. And that's lovely because they work really well. And then there are other parts where they've taken what's in the book and made it fit the visual medium, because not everything in the book is that easy to put into a visual format. It's just not going to happen. What I have noticed is Shadow doesn't seem to dream as much in the TV series as he does in the books. I don't know if that's a conscious thought on the producer's half, that actually we can't keep having our main character being asleep. And certainly some of the dreams he has are pretty weird, and we don't get any explanation really about what is going on in them. We've seen a couple of Shadow's dreams on the TV series, and to be honest, I still don't know what's going on, even having read some of the book. So I think it was probably a wise decision just to show that Shadow does have these weird dreams, but we're not going to focus too much on that. It's just going to be part of his character. I think the casting for the show is spot on. I'm certainly, yes, I know I've seen the series first, but reading this, holding in Shadow from the show in my head while reading about a obviously very white Shadow in the book is causing a little bit of conflict. And there are certainly some sentences in here that are like, no, that doesn't fit with what I know Shadow to be now. But what they have done is capture the essence of Shadow's character, and that's beautifully come through on the screen, and the actors have done an amazing job with that. Mr. Wednesday, again, in the book, I'm not quite sure if I trust him or not. He's certainly a dodgy guy. And Ian McShane in the show, yeah, he's certainly portraying this very dodgy guy. And to be honest, the Mr. Wednesday I'm reading in the book is the Mr. Wednesday I've seen on the screen. There's no problem there. They fit beautifully together. So I certainly think they've got the casting down to a T. They are the characters from the book. Yes, Shadow is a man of colour now in the TV show, but to be honest, that's not a problem. If you ignored a few lines in the book, Shadow could very easily be a man of colour in the book. It's not a problem for me. I like that we have diversity on the screen. I don't mind seeing a very handsome black guy in front of me portraying a main character. I'm cool with that. And it doesn't bother me that they changed him from the book. Books are one medium and books date. You know, this is what, 10 years old? Yeah, this is 10 years old. This is the author's preferred edition of the story. And time has changed an awful lot. And I think books from 10, 20, 30 years ago actually are very, very dated. That's not the world that we know. And I think it's good that when books are adapted for television and film, that they take in those changes and say, actually, no, we're portraying our world and we are opening up these characters. It doesn't matter what they look like. It's whether the actor imbues the character they're playing. And Ricky does that really well. I'm very impressed with how much he shows Shadow's confusion and complex emotions he's having. He's an amazing actor. It's the first thing I've seen him in. And he's really good at saying so much with so few words or a slight look with his face. And it's like, whoa, I get it. I understand exactly what you're portraying there. And he's talented, and that's great. It makes the show a lot stronger. So obviously, I've tried not to spoil it because, you know, not everybody's read the book, not everybody's watched the TV series. But I would say, if you've read the book and sort of held off watching the TV series, I would suggest giving it a go, just bearing in mind it is another telling of the same story. That's all it is. And that it's done with a great deal of respect, and all the changes are for the better, I would say. Certainly, Mr. Nancy has an amazing scene in the TV series that is sorely lacking in the book. And I think that's brilliant. So the changes that have been made are certainly for the better. They do improve the story much more. And I would say if you've seen the TV series but aren't sure if you want to read the book, give it a go. Bearing in mind everything that I've said about it not being a straightforward A to B story, that it is, you are following the characters, you are on this journey like you were with the TV series. And watch out for those changes. You might get a bit more from the book than you did from the TV show. You might not. You might think, nope, no, I'm happy with the TV show. But I would say give it a go. Just bearing in mind, it is quite a hefty book. I'm supposedly going to finish this tomorrow. That's not going to happen, obviously. And I have found the only way I can actually manage reading this is with another book alongside it. The chapters are pretty long. They are quite heavy. And there's a lot to take in that is completely bonkers. And it can kind of mess with your head a little bit if you kind of read it for a long time. So certainly I found reading a chapter of this and then having a break and reading something else and coming back to it has worked really well. I've managed to stick at it and keep going. It's not an easy read, so be prepared for that. But give it a go. I would say to people going, oh, no, it's not as good as the book. That's fine. That's your opinion. You're allowed that opinion. You know, not everybody is going to like how a book is adapted. But I would say you cannot take any book and just whack up, word for word, page for page, what it is on the screen. They don't work. Books are one way of telling a story. The telly or film is another way of telling it. And they're two different mediums, and stories don't work across the two mediums. You have to make some little changes. So, you know, yes, you're allowed to say a book's so much better, but don't poo-poo the TV series because it's a very respectful adaptation of quite a complex book. So, you know, give it a go. That's my thoughts on the American Gods TV series and book. Obviously, I'm still working my way through, so I'm obviously getting spoilers for season 2 here. But yeah, I'm hoping to finish that before the end of the summer. Would be quite nice. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave your thoughts down below. You know, obviously these are only my opinions. This is my view. You know, I'm not Mr. Wednesday. You're allowed to disagree with me. Just do it nicely, please. Please follow me on Goodreads, Twitter and Instagram. As usual, all the links are down below in the description box. Thank you very much for watching. Happy reading. Bye.